Good evening, my name is Uyai Anyeka, coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakuran. Today on Spotlight Africa, Ivorian soldiers held for a month in Mali find favors in negotiations over their release. Africa under threat of Islamic extremist group. We see Kenyans await the announcement of the presidential polls election results. Guinea government announces dissolution of de facto protest group. Plus, in Africa on the rise, South African pharmaceutical company to receive vaccine orders. We have all the stories just up ahead on Spotlight Africa. Do stay with us. Joining us. First in Spotlight Africa is a report that a nationwide curfew has been declared in Sierra Leone following massive protests in parts of Freetown and other areas in the northern part of the country. 2 police officers were killed when protesters descended into clashes between security forces and youth, demanding the resignation of the president as a result of economic hardship. Women who gathered in the city center holding placards fled the scene as tension rose. Dozens of protesters had been arrested. A health worker at a hospital in Freetown said dozens of people had been injured. Several protesters told newsmen the security forces had also fired live bullets amid protesters who were heard chanting against President Julius Maada Bio, who is currently in the United Kingdom on a private visit. According to a web monitoring group, NetBlocks, the internet was temporarily blocked in Freetown in response to the protests. Meanwhile, the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has landed in Kigali, Rwanda. This is his 3rd stop in Africa in meeting with the Rwandan President Paul Kagame. Blinken is expected to visit the Kigali Genocide Memorial before holding a press conference with Foreign Minister Vincent Biruta and the civil society representatives. There he is said to have backed African-led mediation efforts in the DRC Rwanda crisis, adding that the United States followed the efforts and were engaged in it. Blinken said that the United States have developed serious concerns about credible reports of Rwandan backing of M23. He has promised that Washington will not turn a blind eye. The U.S. Secretary of State is expected to touch on this key issue during his Rwandan trip.
Coming out of the discussions, both presidents have agreed to engage in direct talks with each other. They're both ready to resume the talks in the context of the Nairobi process with armed groups, and both welcome the continued U.S. engagement in support of African-led mediation efforts.
In the meantime, Mali has declared 3 days of national mourning to begin on Thursday after the deadliest recent attacks by Islamist militants. The army said an ambush left 42 soldiers dead in the northern region of Gao. According to a statement, jihadist extremists used drones, artillery and booby-trapped vehicles. On national television, the anchor gave more details following the end of the fighting, but the toll is as follows. On the enemy side, 37 terrorists were neutralized. Equipment was abandoned by the assailants in the vicinity of Tessit, as well as 2 vehicles containing equipment and their occupants were destroyed by airstrikes in the forest located 5 kilometers south of the locality. On the friendly side, 42 dead and 20 wounded. In Mali's south, another attack Sunday claimed by Al-Qaeda-linked group killed 5 police officers. The country and its partners have been fighting off extremists for nearly a decade. Despite deliveries of military equipment, terrorists have heaped pressure on the Malian transitional authorities, intensifying attacks ever since Mali's European partners were asked to withdraw. In Ivory Coast, negotiations remain the preferred option to obtain the release of 49 Ivorian soldiers detained for a month in Bamako and accused by the military in power in Mali of being mercenaries, which Abidjan denies, claiming that they were on a mission for the UN. This case illustrates the tensions between Mali and Côte d'Ivoire, accused by Bamako of having incited its West African partners to tighten sanctions against the Malian military perpetrators of 2 coups since 2020. Sanctions were finally lifted in early July. A mediation by Togo has so far been unsuccessful, but discussions are continuing with the view to releasing the detained soldiers as quickly as possible. On the 10th of July, 49 Ivorian soldiers in military uniform but unarmed disembarked in Bamako from a plane of the national airline Air Côte d'Ivoire, another plane carrying their weapons. The threat from the Islamic State extremist group is growing by the day in Africa, and the continent could be the future of the caliphate, an African security expert warned the UN. Martin Ewi said the Islamic State has expanded its influence beyond measure in Africa, with at least 20 countries directly experiencing the extremist group's activity and more than 20 others being used for logistics to mobilize funds and other resources, and others now regional hubs which have become corridors of instability in Africa. Ewi said the Lake Chad Basin, which borders Chad, Nigeria, Niger and Cameroon, is the extremist group's biggest area of operation. Areas in the Sahel are now ungovernable, and Somalia remains the Islamic extremist hotspot in the Horn of Africa. A recent attempt to take over or destabilize Uganda failed, but Ewi said an Islamic affiliate, the Allied Democratic Forces, remains a serious threat. In addition, he said the Islamic State Central Africa has made some regions of Congo and Mozambique human slaughterhouses. In Kenya, we see the postponement of the reopening of schools to next Monday as vote counting continues across the country following Tuesday, August 9 elections. The schools were scheduled to reopen today, Thursday the 11th. Hundreds of primary and secondary schools are normally used as polling stations in Kenya. In a statement, Education Minister Professor George Mogha apologized to the public for any inconveniences that may have been caused by the delay, but said the government was keen on ensuring the safety and comfort of learners through this period. Still in Kenya, the counting of the presidential polls is still underway after Tuesday's presidential election. After almost a decade under President Uhuru Kenyatta, citizens were called to choose between Deputy President William Ruto and Raila Odinga, the veteran opposition leader now backed by the ruling party. Preliminary results suggest a tight race for the two candidates, although turnout was low, suggesting growing frustration with the political elite. Some remain optimistic about the future. Reports say this is the first time in Kenyan's experience where a different atmosphere is being built politically because of the two front runners. There might be tensions, but the government is well prepared with security personnel inside everywhere. If neither Ruto nor Odinga wins more than 50% of votes, Kenya will stage a runoff for the first time in its history. Back here, security forces in Nigeria have arrested several suspects on Tuesday, accused of carrying out an attack against a church last June in Owo, Ondo State. The attack on the 5th of June during a morning service at St. Francis Catholic Church in southwestern Nigeria left at least 40 people dead and many injured. Government officials accused Islamic State-affiliated jihadist group ISWAP of the attacks. The suspects were arrested in a joint operation by the army, police and other security forces. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari denounced the attack that sent shockwaves in Nigeria and abroad. For the past 12 years, the northeast of Nigeria has been the scene of a jihadist insurgency, which has killed more than 40,000 people and displaced 2 million. Meanwhile, a major collective that has been opposing the ruling junta in Guinea for several months and which had spearheaded the protests against former President Condé between 2010 and 2021 has been dissolved by a government order as it prepared a new demonstration. The de facto grouping known as the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution is dissolved, and this order takes effect from the date of its signature, says the document signed by Mourning, Minister of Territorial Administration and Decentralization. The National Front for the Defense of the Constitution, FNDC, a coalition of parties, trade unions and civil society organizations, was at the initiative of the demonstrations banned by the authorities in which 5 people were killed to denounce the unilateral management of the transition by the junta. Over to Senegal, we see Senegal's main opposition alliance on Wednesday announced it would not appeal against the July 31st legislative election results. Provisional results published on August the 4th saw the presidential coalition lose an absolute majority, a first in history for the West African country. The opposition saw no point in going to the Constitutional Council to lodge an appeal because it's not at that level. The deputies were removed from the inter-coalition based on the ballot box stuffing that existed in some areas. The Yewi-Walu inter-coalition confirmed it will not appeal to the Constitutional Council without specifying whether it accepted or contested the results of the elections. The unanimously decided not to participate in the election of the high councillors of the local authorities and also in the National Assembly, as they plan to carry out a control and then introduce a bill for its dissolution. Yeri Askanwi had complained on August the 4th about the vote counting commission refusing to let it verify the voting records in 4 localities in the north of the country, a stronghold of President Sall. The final figures must be published by the Constitutional Council, Senegal's highest court, no later than the 11th of August. President Macky Sall's coalition, which includes his party Alliance for the Republic APR and other parties, won 82 seats of the National Assembly's 165. The National Vote Counting Commission said, down from the 125 it won in 2017. In Nairobi, rescuers are continuing to find survivors and bodies after a building collapsed on Wednesday in the city capital. The 4-storied structure came down earlier in the afternoon in the Kenyan capital. Red Cross Society head of disaster management Michael Ayabi said the number of people that had been trapped in the rubble was unknown. However, officials have said that 3 fatalities had been reported so far and 1 person was also taken to the hospital in a critical condition. At the time of the incident, it was immediately impossible to establish the fatality. Furthermore, children are happy to be home again. Nigeria has brought back around 12,000 of its citizens who fled raids by criminal gangs in the northwest of the country early this year. The authorities in Shimfida village, located in Katsina State near the Nigerian border, said improved security prompted the voluntary returns since Sunday. The returnees prayed for safety and an end to the predicament they previously experienced. Outside a makeshift camp at the public school in the Nigerian town of Jibia, thousands boarded buses to go home on Monday. Jibia's political administrator said he expected more arrivals. There are those who are taking refuge in Jibia and those who are in Niger Republic. Bashir Shabush starts approximately 6,000 refugees are estimated to be in Niger Republic. In Jibia, maybe even more, from about 6,000, and those people in Niger Republic are on their way back. They're expecting their arrival to send them to Shimfida. Despite military operations, reports say that criminal gangs known locally as bandits are still active in the wider region of northern Nigeria, and they continue to emerge. For Africa on the rise, we see Africa's top public health body hopeful for South African pharmaceutical firm Aspen Pharmacare to get orders for its own brand COVID-19 vaccines. Africa's Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, said last month that it is in detailed discussions with buyers to generate demand for Aspen's COVID-19 vaccine, Asfenovax. Just 1/5 of adults in Africa are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. but demand has fallen across the continent, which already receives donated vaccines from Western countries. The body is confident that it will be able to get some positive results out of the negotiations that are continuing. Ahmed Ogwell, acting director of Africa CDC, told newsmen today. Aspen currently produces vaccines for Johnson & Johnson, but it struck a deal in March to produce, price, and sell its own brand version of the shot for African markets. And that's all we have for you at this time on Spotlight Africa. To ensure to follow us on social media, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You have been watching Spotlight Africa, and I am Uyai Anyeken. Thanks for watching, and do have a peaceful evening ahead.